Hello, everyone. My name is Liam Mulholland. Uh, I have a first class honours degree in biology. I have a diploma in education. I have a master's degree in contemporary biology and biochemistry. I am a chartered biologist, a member of the Institute of Biology. I have been a teacher all my life in the field of science, specialising in biology. But more importantly than all those qualifications, I am a grandfather and a father. And in order to get you into the proper frame of mind as to what this presentation is all about, allow me to tell you a little story that happened to me 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago. It's now the 25th of June 2022. And roughly 3 years ago, my eldest son, William, had been living in New York for 3 years working, and he decided to come home for the summer. And I lifted him at Dublin Airport, took him home. But before I took him home to his house, I took him to see his sister, uh, who has two children, and we surprised him and went into the house. And Lisa said to young Peter, "Peter, here's your favourite uncle. Here's Uncle Willie home from New York." So he jumped up and gave him a hug and went straight back to his iPad, working away, whatever he was doing. And I said to my daughter, I said, "That's disgusting how Peter was more interested in his phone than he was seeing his uncle home from America." And then William told me, "Dad, that's nothing. I was getting, about 24 hours ago, Dad, I was getting the bus from New York City down to JFK Airport. And a couple got on the bus with me, and they had a son roughly the same age as Peter, about 10 or 11 years of age. And after about 10 minutes into the journey, the young son, I thought Daddy was taking an epileptic fit. I can't describe in words what he did, but I can reenact it. So William went, and his dad came over to him, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Rocky, Rocky, it's okay, Rocky. There'll be Wi-Fi when we get to the airport." Wi-Fi when we get to the airport. And that, as a scientist and as a parent and a grandparent, that got my head racing because I had seen it myself this last number of years. So I decided to investigate the phenomenon of screen addiction. Now, I know I am addicted to the phone. You are addicted to the phone. Anybody who's got one of these iPads or iPhones or smartphones is addicted to it. That's bad enough, but it is more serious when we're talking about children. We're thinking about children, our children. There is a certain part of the brain called the cerebral hemispheres, and that is the seat of learning. That is the big cauliflower bit that sits on top of your head. Okay, that makes a human human. The cerebral cortex is responsible for movement, for monitoring your movement, for thinking, for having interaction with people, learning, and all those things. And it is most receptive during the years between 3 and 11. If a child is sitting looking at a screen during those years, he is not outside experiencing the things he should be learning. He's not absorbing what he should be absorbing, he or she should be absorbing during those very, very informative years. And the science behind what's going on with Rocky, maybe with you, and maybe with your children or your grandchildren, my grandchildren, is centered around a product called dopamine, a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, allow me to explain. Do you remember the moment when the driving examiner told you, "Well, Mr. Jones, Miss Jones, I'm pleased to tell you you have passed your driving test"? And that feeling of euphoria that came over you. Do you remember your favourite football team scoring the goal and won the cup or the league? Remember that feeling that came over you? Remember being in love? Yeah? All those pleasurable experiences were brought on by your brain releasing a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is the pleasure hormone. And when people become addicted to something, it is all to do with the release of dopamine. A person who's addicted to poker machines or gambling machines, he is addicted to the sound of the money coming down. Yeah. A person who's addicted to horse racing is addicted to that feeling of euphoria he gets when his horse crosses the finishing line first. Yeah. There are other external chemical stimuli that causes mass release of dopamine. One is nicotine. Another one is marijuana. Then we have cocaine and heroin. Yeah. All those addictive substances are addictive because they cause a massive release of dopamine. And the more dopamine is released, the greater is the euphoria and the pleasure feeling. But the side effect is when you don't have that when you don't have that stimuli, then you do not get the dopamine release and you get depression. Okay? So addiction is all to do with the release of dopamine, and you want to constantly get that dopamine fix. The more dopamine your brain uses up, I mean, it's like a factory inside your brain, and the workers making the dopamine, there's only a certain amount of raw materials in the brain to make X amount of dopamine to keep a person normal during the day. If you're taking an external stimuli to make the factory workers work harder and harder and harder, soon all the raw materials in the brain for making dopamine are finished with, and you get a terrible feeling called withdrawal or depression. That's what happened to Rocky on the bus. He didn't get his fix. You know what I'm talking about. Now, listen, after that incident of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when my son came home, I started to investigate the phenomenon of screen addiction. And the internet abounds and YouTube abounds with all sorts of very informative videos from child psychologists, child psychiatrists, teachers, and people who are involved in the learning process. I have lots and lots of teacher friends, especially primary school teachers. And during my research this last 3 years, they all expressed the same phenomenon, that the children who were addicted to the mobile phones were the ones who were hardest to teach. They were disruptive in class, they were unattentive in class, and they didn't interact properly in class with the classmates or teacher. And when you understand that them children were like Rocky and were having withdrawal, that is what's happening to kids. This is what's happening in our generation today. As I say, the internet and YouTube abounds with many, many videos of that type. I can put links down below, but you don't need to watch them because you have experienced them yourself. Yeah? If you are a parent or a grandparent, you will have experienced all those things that the videos are explaining. So I have no explaining to do to you. You know what I'm talking about. So I looked long and hard. How can I, as a teacher, as a parent, and a grandparent, alleviate this problem of screen addiction? And it's very, very, very difficult. And about a month ago, on my search through the internet, I discovered a company called the Private Family Network, who were offering a solution. The first company in the world to offer a solution to the worldwide phenomenon of screen addiction. It's the new digital heroin. Trust me, that's what it is. I know you can't imagine your little child injecting morphine or cocaine or sniffing cocaine or drinking alcohol or lighting a cigarette. Yeah, you can't imagine that. But that's exactly what they are doing when they get on that blinking mobile phone. And you know how hard it is yourself when you don't have the phone. And if you take that phone away from them, they go and have an experience like Rocky. So this company, the Private Family Network, I investigated them. They are registered on Dun and Bradstreet. Their apps have been accepted on Google and Apple, which speaks volumes for their credibility. So you're going to hear an awful lot more about the Private Family Network, of which I am going to become part of, because it's my duty. It's my duty as a science teacher, but more importantly, it's my duty as a parent and a grandparent to try and help parents control this worldwide phenomenon of screen addiction, the new digital heroin. Thank you.